Welcome to CEO Now podcast. My name is Russ Lebovitz, and today I'm together with Russ. And Russ is from San Francisco. And the reason I invited Russ is that I'm a little bit curious about why make the decision about becoming an entrepreneur and what is the experience. So welcome, Russ.
Thank you, Lars. Very happy to be here talking with you today.
Yeah, I'm happy you would take time for that. Now I have known you for quite a while, and I know that you are an entrepreneur. And you know, in Denmark we have a lot of discussion where the government try to encourage people to start up their own company. So we need, as a basic of the society, a lot of entrepreneurs. But sometimes you can hear about it, and everybody dream about becoming a millionaire, the next Apple, and so on. But perhaps we today can cut the crap and just discuss why become an entrepreneur, and I would like you to share some of your experience with us.
Sure.
So why did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I became an entrepreneur almost out of necessity in an evolution of a career. So I began with a very technical background and worked in large organizations. And while I enjoyed it, I found that over time there were things that I felt were very important to do, that I had the skills to do, but that they were frustrated by the natural constraints of a large organization. So it has to do with wanting to do things that are very different, that have never been done before, that require taking risks, and that's not something that large organizations do well. But I found over time that if the idea was the right one and I could articulate it and I had a vision for that idea, that I could do it outside of the structure of large organizations much more effectively.
Okay, so in the beginning, before you made the decision about being independent and do it on your own way, it was more a response that the organized corporation wouldn't allow you to work with new ideas.
Well, there were limitations, and not faulting large organizations. That's what they do well, is that they have a direction, they have a product, they know how to do it to scale, and they find people that they teach how to do that. And while there's opportunity for some changes, if you want to do something more radical, then it's a large organization is not necessarily well suited for that. So for me, I had ideas about, I wanted to do things that might change the world, but that they entailed a lot of risk. And so it was a learning process. First, the most important thing is, being an entrepreneur has risk and
Yes.
reward, much more risk than reward. And that's, this is the most important thing to state. Most things you do will not work out. And therefore, you're giving up something with a large organization. Okay. You're giving up.
So where did you start? What kind of company as the first one? I know you are engaged in several companies at the present time.
Yeah.
But your first company, your breakout
Sure.
idea,
Sure.
what was that?
Well, I mean, the first one was I was involved in healthcare and in a large organization delivering healthcare. And I felt that I had learned within that large organization that there were more effective ways of delivering the same care at lower cost, using technology, utilizing people differently, and that the savings could be such using technology and changing the way people's time was managed that not only could you lower the costs, but you could also, some of those saved costs could go towards the business and could reward the investors. So yes. Usually doing something entrepreneurial is about an idea that changes the world, but it also has to be fiscally enticing to investors. So there has to be, something is better, but also it generates a certain amount of cash or opportunity that investors are also willing to take a risk with.
Yes. So and I know and today I'm not going to discuss with you all the aspects of getting the funding, because I know all entrepreneurs are discussing how to make the value pitch, how to find business angels or different kind of funding. So money is always a question. But if you look back to your first year as independent with your own business idea, what did surprise you as becoming independent?
Well, I mean, the first is, in my case, it was interesting. You give up something, and so you have to live more from something guaranteed to, what we might call as a hunter-gatherer.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, you have to always figure out how you're going to survive. So you have a big idea, but you have to do things. You need cash to live unless you are independently wealthy, which I was not. And so I had to figure out how to balance what I wanted to do and the time spent there with things that someone would be willing to pay. So generally, as an entrepreneur, you take a significant hit in guaranteed income in exchange for freedom and the opportunity then to share in more. But you have to have a way. You either take investor money or you have to have a job on the side that doesn't pay the same as your job in a big organization. So you have to really want to do it.
So what you're saying is rather, if you're not wealthy, then it's rather difficult to be an entrepreneur on first class.
Yes, and first class is not the way it usually works. You travel. You never travel first class. You figure out how to get things done very efficiently, because the money, both to run the business, to support yourself, to support the other people that you bring into the business, has to come from somewhere. So if one piece of advice I have for people who think they want to be an entrepreneur is to make sure that they can, to understand, what it takes for them to live, and to be able to be very realistic about that, and to learn how to run your new idea as efficiently as possible with respect to cash. Cash is everything. Cash is king. When you run out of money, you have no more business.
No. So, and that I also know, also from Business Institute, we talk about credit lines. You always have to care about the cost, what to do, you have to react fast and so on. But you have the freedom. So you have, at one hand, to figure out about the money and what is necessary to the daily life. But then you have the freedom. What kind of freedom have you experienced then?
Well, I mean, it's the freedom of ideas, the freedom of passion, the freedom to explore things in areas where you know things about, the freedom to extend what you want to do into areas where you aren't necessarily an expert. So the freedom is very great, and it is the biggest reward. And sometimes for many entrepreneurs, after trying several times, that's the only reward, is you get to live, to do what you want, and to have the freedom, and you get to live on less than you would live otherwise. However, every time one has an idea and one feels compelled as an entrepreneur to move forward with that idea, there should always, the rewards for entrepreneurism and for taking risks should always be there. They should balance, the rewards should balance the risks. And when there is a win, it's a very nice win. It might be several years worth of salary. It might be a lifetime worth of salary. But that can't be the overriding factor. If it's only to become very wealthy, the odds of that are not good. So, one should be very careful why one is making a decision to become an entrepreneur.
You need to think about what is your definition of success.
Right.
And if it is to earn a lot of money,
that is a very low probability outcome.
Yes.
Having the freedom to explore an idea is a very high probability outcome. You have an idea, you have to sell it to other people who will work for you at reduced rate. You have to sell that idea to either potential partners who will pay you for whatever you're producing, or investors who will give you money for the chance to either participate in what you're doing or to ultimately believe they will become wealthy for it. So as an entrepreneur, it helps if you have a clear vision and if you have skills as an evangelist, which you learn over time. But in the end, you're judged, especially as a serial entrepreneur, by what you did the last few times, how you take care of investors, how you take an idea, turn it into a product, get it to market as efficiently as possible. And so there are many skills that one acquires as a serial entrepreneur.
Yes, and wouldn't it be right to characterize you as a serial entrepreneur?
Yes.
And then also you get the credibility by your track record.
That's right. And so you always have to remember that, you have to treat everyone else better than you treat yourself. And we've already said that you don't treat yourself all that well to start with. So you really have to have a vision for what you want to do, and it has to be worth building something. And being an entrepreneur is very volatile.
So what can keep you up at night? Because the struggle with funding, paying bills, and I also assume that you can have a vision, but to fulfill it can be rather difficult, take a longer time, then you see new aspect you didn't knew was a problem. So what keep you up at night?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I'd say that it's things related to the volatility of the business, meaning that when you run out of money, you generally are done. If you run out of money without having delivered what you have promised, then it is very unlikely that anyone else will put more money into it. And so you always have in the back of your mind that, you could hit that point. And so the things that get you to that point are spending more than you can afford to spend. Yes. Or just having it take longer. So it's all about time and money. Even if you have a clear vision and you have cash and investment to start with, time is very, very important, because every day you pay people, every day you pay for space. So the things that would keep one up at night, certainly would keep me up at night, is where the cash is and how we are delivering on milestones against time.
So cash versus how is it going with the plan?
Yes, but it's both how much cash and how much time.
Yes.
So you usually plan is in starting a business, whether it's a technology business or a service business or any type of new business, that you will get a certain amount in, it will last you to a milestone, and that milestone either is something that for an investor is such that they're willing to put in more money, or even more often, that milestone is that you get a product and you get it to market and you expect now to generate revenues to be break even.
Yeah.
So it can be any of those, but whatever you've promised, you've got to deliver on, and it's very difficult because you don't have control, and certainly for the things I've done, no one's ever done them before. And you also often reach a realization that your proposal, at least in terms of time, it still might work, but it might take longer. So you have to, as early as possible when you learn, you have to then explain. You must be very brutally honest all of the time with yourself, your coworkers, and your investors. Honesty counts for quite a bit as an entrepreneur. It is the currency you have. It's more important than your cash, your integrity, and willingness and ability to face the facts and share and communicate what is going on.
And if you're not capable of this, because I believe to be in this for years, is there a way to learn that, to cope that, or is it more a part of your personality to be in this environment?
It's another really great question. So, as entrepreneurs benefit from having a vision and being evangelists, as I said, being able to convince other people of how great an idea is. But once you've convinced people of that one round and you've raised money, then your skills have to shift, and it's how you deliver on product development and bringing whatever product you have promised to market. And so it's a different set of skills, and in the end, since you can't control everything, you either develop these skills. So you start off having good communication skills, but many entrepreneurs that I know run into problems that they can sell, but they can't admit that things aren't going well when they're not, or that the plan has to change. And so you develop more and more skills, and I've learned over time that if you can't sell, you can't be an entrepreneur. It is very important. On the other hand, if you can't be honest and you can't change your plan and you can't adjust, you may be an entrepreneur, but you are unlikely to be successful.
Okay, thank you so much for that. In the end here, would you enlighten us? What are you up to at the present moment?
Sure. Well, what we didn't say here is that I said that what I did was technical, but what I do is technical related to healthcare and particularly to medical technology. So at present, I am a founder and CEO of a very interesting novel company called Amprion, Amprion, that we study what we believe is the mechanism of disease underlying neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other diseases for which we have no cure, no real understanding. And what Amprion does is that we measure what we believe causes these diseases, and I believe that a lot of other leading scientists and physicians believe this, and we can measure it in a unique way. So our pitch for our company always to investors is that, one, we can tell people, watch a disease that is very, very difficult to understand evolving at a molecular level. We can detect these diseases very early before there are symptoms, and because of what we do from a financial point of view, we can help drug companies develop better drugs and develop them faster because they can monitor the disease and monitor whether their drug is improving in both animal studies as well as clinical trials.
So you're going to change the world?
Always the goal.
Always the goal. Thank you so much for taking time.
Yes, thank you.